BMW launched their first sport activity vehicle, the BMW X5, back in 1999 in response to the newly successful Mercedes-Benz M-Class. It's taken BMW almost 2 decades to fill their SUV gap and bring to market a full-size luxury SUV to rival the Mercedes GLS class, which has been in production since 2006. Our spotlight is on this 2020 BMW X7 M50i. This is the biggest SUV BMW has produced, and there's a lot to go over on this $134,700 Canadian car. So we're going to be going over everything you need to know if you're in the market for a full-size luxury SUV. Yes, there is a lot to go over when it comes to the X7 M50i. First of all, this vehicle is finished in Ametrine Metallic paint. That is a $1,000 paint color. It looks really nice. It's a purple color, not quite the same that you can get on a proper M car. If you were at the Toronto International Auto Show a couple months ago, you would have seen the M8 that they had there. Similar color, but not quite the same. I think it looks really good. We have a number of other options on this vehicle, over $20,000 worth of options, including $8,000 for the premium package. That adds the Sky Lounge panoramic sunroof, luggage compartment package, ventilated front seats, glass application for the iDrive controllers, walk Napa leather dashboard, ambient air, front massage, BMW's Drive Recorder, and the BMW Individual Extended Merino leather in ivory white. Now, it's not the full Merino, just the extended Merino. That would cost even more to go up to that. We also have the $4,750 dynamic handling package that adds integral active steering, which is 4-wheel steering, and Active Comfort Drive with road preview that uses the GPS as well as the camera on the front to determine if the vehicle should be slowing down coming into a curve when you're on active cruise control, and will also adjust based on any bumps and imperfections in the road ahead. We also have the $2,000 advanced driving assistant package and the Bowers & Wilkins Diamond surround sound system, which costs $4,900 Canadian, and that is well worth it. It sounds fantastic. And that's something that we always say anytime we drive a vehicle with that sound system. So what does the BMW X7 represent? This is meant to be their full-size flagship SUV, but it's not quite a proper 7 Series SUV. Think of it kind of like the GLS in the sense that the GLS isn't really a full-on S-Class that's been lifted up. Neither is this. There is quite a bit of differences between the two. Sizing is pretty important. It isn't quite as big as a 7 Series, especially when it comes to that second row. It doesn't give you quite as much space as you would get on a long wheelbase 7 Series, but you do have the added benefit of better ground clearance over a 7 Series. So if you really do like SUVs, then you're going to like this, especially if you like the X5. It's so similar. It just feels a little bit bigger and it still drives really well. But I say it's not really a full-on 7 Series SUV because you don't quite get the same features in that second row. You only have heated seats instead of heated and ventilated and massaging seats, so that would have been a nice thing to have. Plus, ours is also configured as the 7-passenger X7. You can have captain's chairs in the second row with a storage compartment in the center, but it does not add massage or ventilation to those seats. You do have 5-zone automatic climate control, so the passengers in the trunk space do have a little bit of vent control back there, plus they have their own sunroof that can be controlled from the front compartment. But all the other things that you would expect to find on a fully loaded BMW are present here. We have BMW's laser light headlights, you have soft closed doors, comfort access, BMW's connected drive, so you can control everything from your smartphone. If you have the proper phone, you can even unlock your car with BMW's digital key. You've got all the features, and especially if we look back a couple weeks ago when we had the M850i Grand Coupe, the features are very similar. I mean, some of the differences that I like about this, you do have the M badge on the side of the vehicle on the fenders. For some reason in Canada, BMW puts some of the vehicles with them and some don't. Something like the M850i Grand Coupe we featured did not have those quarter panel badges, but some people just don't like them. You can tell it's the X7 because of the long sweeping L-shaped design that goes along the bottom. It's finished in BMW's signature Cerium paint color, which they use on their M Performance cars. It runs from the front fender all the way to the back, and there's even some on the bottom of the rear bumper. So it really wraps around the whole vehicle, and you'll know that it is the X7 because, like the 7 Series, this is the only vehicle that has that design trait to it. Also, the vehicle's huge. I mean, you look at it, it is noticeably bigger than any of the other SUVs we've tested so far. It feels big on the road, but it doesn't feel like you're driving a fridge. It still performs like a BMW, and especially with that M50i engine, you got 523 horsepower, 553 pound-feet of torque. It goes 4.7 seconds, 0 to 100 kilometers an hour. I mean, how much faster do you really need a car like this to be? Sure, if you really need absolute power, you could go with the Mercedes-AMG GLS 63 Plus and have monstrous amounts of power in a full-size SUV. But I think this is more than enough, especially with the way it's configured. I think it just looks really good. Man, I just love driving it. A couple other things to note about the X7. This comes with BMW's 2-axle adaptive air suspension. It allows you to lower the vehicle by 20 millimeters when you're driving in sport mode, and you can also raise it up another 40 millimeters to go into off-road mode. Currently, this is in parking mode. It's an even lower setting, very low to the ground. You cannot drive the vehicle in this mode. It will automatically raise it back up. But if you put the car in sport mode, it will be in the lowest driving setting possible. And if you go over a certain speed as well, it will lower the car. So cool stuff. We actually saw that last year on the X5 xDrive 50i. Normally with this car, we'd have 22-inch Cerium Grey MV spoke alloy rims. Because we're in winter mode here, we don't have those set of rims on here, but I still think the black rims look really good considering you have the shadowline exterior trim on everything but the kidney grills and the mirror caps. I think it's got a pretty sinister look with this purple color. One of the other things that you get with the M50i is the Alcantara anthracite headliner. If you remember a couple weeks ago when we did the X6 M50i, it just had an anthracite headliner, so you do get the Alcantara because you've got the X7. But I really don't want to bore you with some of the details about it. You can go online and you can find this out yourself. But when it comes to the 750 Li that we featured versus this X7 M50i, there are some very interesting notes when it comes to the dimensions. The 7 Series is 108 millimeters longer when it comes to the wheelbase, also 102 millimeters longer overall. So it's actually a longer vehicle than the X7. However, as you would expect, the X7 is both wider and higher and has a much better ground clearance, 86 millimeters more with this vehicle. And then the other important things to note, front headroom is actually better on this vehicle, but most of the important information is actually better on the 7 Series, like front legroom and rear legroom. So if you need the space, you want to be able to stretch out and relax a little bit, the 7 Series is still going to be the way to go. But price, there's a $19,000 difference between this vehicle and a similarly equipped 750 Li. You can get more features with the 7 Series, but you're looking at more cost. So if you want something a little bit more affordable and to stand out, then maybe the X7 M50i is the way to go. And like I said, I love driving it. Like, it's got an amazing road presence and it really attracts your attention when you're driving by. Now we're gonna get inside. We're gonna talk about a couple of features on the different rows. I'll show you how I fit in the third row and the second row. I'm gonna get out of this suit to do that, but you'll see us in the driving segment going around in ultimate luxury with the 2020 BMW X7 M50i. Well, I told you we'd be doing the back seat area, and here we are. First off, as I mentioned outside, the back seat space isn't quite as spacious as it is on a long wheelbase 7 Series. You do have a lot of the same stuff back here. Powered side sunshades, pretty nice feature to have. You can control both from this side. The rear seats can also control the Sky Lounge panoramic sunroof, and also even the little back window, the back sunroof there for the people who are in the back seat. So you've got some control there. The only thing you really miss out on, the screens is an option, not on this specific vehicle, so you can have the dual screens back here, but you don't have the controls for the front media. And also dual zone climate control back here, but not the full climate that we would see on the front, where you have independent fan settings for each side. It is a shared fan speed with 2 zone for the temperature, and then also outboard heated seats. No ventilation, no massage. You also have seat controls along the bottom, like we would see on a 7 Series. You can recline the seat, can push it back, and there's even a button that you can push that sets it to an ideal position. It's a little bit further up, about half an inch further up than you can go. You can go back right like this, and honestly, I've got about a half foot of legroom here behind where I would be sitting, whether I'm in the driver's seat or the passenger seat. So space-wise is really good. Lots of headroom as well. It's just the features that you lose out on. Now we're going to go into the third row. You have to be able to put this part up, your armrest, and I'm also going to move this seat forward, because for me to actually be able to fit it is a little tight. So you'll want to put this seat up, especially if you're putting an adult back there. And I'll show you just so that you can see, if I were to push my seat forward, you know, how far can I go? Could I actually sit behind myself being comfortable? Okay, so I would say that's about comfortable. It's almost there on both sides. So now I'll show you how to get into the back. There are two sets of controls. I'm just going to push this up just a little bit more. There's two sets of buttons on the side of the seats here. There's one button on the left side or right side. It's actually on the side of the seating that will push the seat out of the way. The other button will actually fold the seat. So we're going to just push it. It will move the front seats out of the way so that you have enough space for it to push up and out of the way. And then there's two sets of controls for the back seats on the C-pillars at the bottom. You push them down as if you were opening up the windows, same kind of buttons for the window controls. The seats will move out of the way and the seats will automatically flip up. Now, for me to get back there, it's not too difficult, believe it or not. Let's just try to shut the door at the same time, which obviously is not a problem that you would normally have if you were sitting back here. So we're back here, flip the seats up, push this. There is space. Now this will stop. See, I can't actually fit. It's going back too far. So if I were to sit maybe a little straighter, there we go. Oh, and it knows, somebody is a little big back there. And I have to say that things back here aren't bad at all. We do have enough space for especially older kids. Adults might feel a little cramped, but depending on how you set up the seats, you should have enough room even if you're on a short trip. You do have the 5th zone automatic climate control along the headliner. There are outboard heated seats in the 3rd row. Nice feature to have. That's something that we really never find in a 3-row SUV. So for example, if I'm feeling just a little stuffy back here because there's no real airflow when it's on low, then I can turn it up myself. You have vents in the headliner as well as vents underneath your feet, so you can turn it up, you can change the temperature and everything else all from back here. Really nice stuff. You also have control for the small sunroof and your reading lamps up the top. Nice thing there, you can close off the sun. And we have cup holders, a small amount of wood trim, and some ambient lighting to go along there. Plus, right along the side of the seats are charging ports. There's USB-C charging ports along with the net, if you want to put the cargo net in there. Plus, these little plastic caps come off on the sides. Just where the windows are, you can put the privacy screen for the rear if you're using the whole trunk. BMW does provide a smaller sectional piece that just goes on if you have all 3 seats up to be able to still put things in the trunk and have some privacy back there. But overall, it works. Is it the most comfortable experience? No, not necessarily, but it is functional, and we don't find that often with the 3rd row. Like I said, if I had this set up a little bit better, for some reason the seats have come back quite a bit more than I was expecting them to, but if you were to push them up a little bit more, if you had smaller passengers in the 2nd row, if you had 5 kids, for example, and you were taking up all the back seat space, I think that they would be fine. But even if you had to use this for adults, there are worse options out there. So now that we've had a chance to look at the 2nd row and the 3rd row, let's get behind the wheel of the 2020 BMW X7 M50i and see what else this vehicle has to offer if you're in the market for a $135,000 full-size luxury SUV. I've been looking forward to driving this car for so long now. Over a year since I was hoping to get into it. The vehicle that was originally destined for 2019 for the Montreal fleet just was missing. I don't know how you can lose an X7, but they lost it. So I'm pretty glad though that I got to wait, because that would have been the xDrive 40i. And honestly, for a vehicle this size, you gotta have even the xDrive 50i, which only was out in Canada for the 2019 model year. That's the one to go with, or this M50i. You need the power just because, I mean, it's a full-size car. You want that power and that prestige that comes with it. So let's talk about this vehicle, how it performs, handles, and everything, because you'll be very curious, especially if you've watched our episode on the 7 Series recently. What a fantastic car. It's almost there. I feel in a lot of ways that I really am sitting in a slightly raised up 7 Series. It's comfortable, it's spacious enough, I have a good seating position, tons of headroom, everything is what I would expect. All the front seat luxuries are there. Massaging seats, heat, ventilation, power, driver memory, passenger memory, heated armrests, you got it all. You got 5-zone automatic climate control. You can't use the 3rd zone unless the seats are locked into position. So in this case right now, I've got maximum trunk space open, so we don't have that functionality. But honestly, I mean, why am I going to waste having airflow going to the back? There's nobody even in the 2nd row. The point of this car though is more for that 2nd row. I don't think a lot of people are really going to be buying it to be sticking 6 or 7 passengers in it. Maybe. Let me know in the comments below if this would be a vehicle you would be considering for the seating space in terms of how many people you can fit into it. I think though that most people who are going to be buying the X7 will be doing so because they just want the space, they want the prestige, but maybe you're going to have 1 or 2 people in it, 3 or 4 sometimes like me. But we'll go over, you'll see some B-roll of how I fit in the back of this vehicle. It's pretty spacious in the 2nd row. 3rd row though, I don't know. I mean, it's functional. It just takes a little while to get the seats into position. It takes a little while to get into the back seats because everything's power operated. For you to flip it in, it takes a little bit for the front seats to move, and then the driver's seat and the front passenger seat have to move if you're getting in on either side. And then that seat will flip up so you can get in to the 3rd row. It's a complicated process. But in a 2-row mode, tons of storage space, good amount of seating space, super comfortable. And it performs. It really does. I mean, it's slower by a full second than the M850i Grand Coupe that we featured, but that is to be expected. This is a very heavy vehicle. There's a lot of stuff going into it. I mean, just look at the doors. The back doors are huge. I think they're the biggest rear doors I've ever seen. And I mean, I own a 7 Series. They're just even taller than that. So you have a huge vehicle. It weighs a ton, and you can still do 0 to 100 kilometers in 4.7 seconds. You can't argue with that. Yeah, it gets up to speed, sounds really good. Even though this is the M Performance car, it's still not meant to be like a track car. I really don't recommend taking this on a track. You're gonna wanna take this back and forth to school, but you obviously can give it a nice little rip when you want. So if we put it into sport mode, turn off all traction control and everything. DC off, DCS off, sport mode, foot down. Holy crap! 100. Whoa, buddy. Man, that thing is quick. Put it back into normal mode here with Sport Plus. Oh yeah, this thing will boogie. And that's, again, the whole point for buying this trim. You're not necessarily going to be using all 523 horsepower all the time, but I'll tell you the truth. I've been driving this for a few days now. It's always in Sport Plus mode. I'm ripping it because that's what this car is meant to do. If you just want something comfortable to get the job done, you like the space of it, then I guess, personally, I would still say go with a 2019 xDrive 50i. Try to get that V8, but I mean, it's such a nice engine and the exhaust is so good too. And everything else about it, it is so close to riding the same way the 7 Series does. You can feel that it's not a car. And that's really the only thing about it. It's not so much a negative, but when you're driving a 7 Series, especially a long wheelbase one, it feels really planted and solid on the road. And this does as well, but from an SUV perspective. So you can't get that exact replication from what a 7 Series can do. But it's such a good car. It really is the closest that we'll get to a 7 Series SUV. It's the whole reason why it's the X7. Oh boy. It's so quick. It really doesn't have a right to be this quick just because of how big it is. But it goes, so there's no worry about power. Don't worry so much about the fuel economy either, because gas, as we're filming this, is tanking at this point. So you can fill up for about the same price of premium this week is what it would cost regular about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago. So if you're buying the car right now, you're in luck. You've got some pretty low fuel prices. But it is a great car to drive, and I would say the 7 Series is still a car that's meant to be driven in. You want to have somebody drive you around in it, you want to sit in the back and relax. But the X7, this one, it's a driver's car. The 2020 BMW X7 M50i completed our 100km test loop in Eco Pro mode in 11.5 liters per 100 kilometers or 20.5 US miles per gallon, which is far off from the 8.5 liters per 100 kilometers we did with the 2020 BMW 750Li xDrive. Our 612km week wrapped up at a whopping 16.6 liters per 100 kilometers or 14.2 mpg, but we did keep it almost exclusively in Sport Plus mode. There's a lot to like about the BMW X7. The exterior design works for this size of vehicle with the large kidney grille and massive doors. It's hard to mistake this for one of BMW's smaller sport activity vehicles. The M50i performance was excellent, giving this behemoth some serious get up and go without ever feeling sluggish. BMW's twin-axle air suspension allows you to adjust your ride height on the fly and makes getting in easier for small children. BMW's interior design was very good, with space for real people to use the third row and optional captain's chairs to configure the X7 the way that you want. I was personally impressed that the third row had its own sunroof, fifth zone climate, leather-wrapped armrests, and ambient lighting. Finally, the available options and packages on the X7 give buyers almost all the tech that you'd expect from the 7 Series, with plenty of paint and leather choices to individualize your G07 just the way that you want it. It doesn't hurt either that a similarly equipped 2020 BMW 750Li xDrive costs about $20,000 more, making the X7 a really good deal for those who want the prestige that comes with a proper German luxury flagship. The dislikes are minor and follow what we had to dislike about the G12 7 Series. BMW's iDrive voice control isn't as advanced as what we've seen from the competition, though we find this specific Bowers & Wilkins audio system to be superb, which doesn't get added to our dislike list. BMW's ambient light colors are limited compared to Mercedes-Benz, but the overall experience is still what you'd want. The only other complaint I really had was the time it takes to get into the third row. I know it won't be a problem for most buyers, but since all the seats are power operated, it means you have to wait for the seat program to push everything out of the way before people can get in and out, and since the front row seats often move, it means that everybody has to be out of the car before the third row can get in or out. Overall though, if you're looking for a full-size luxury SUV and want the performance, prestige, and comfort that comes from a BMW 7 Series, then the X7 is the way to go. It doesn't quite ride or drive the same way, but you can get almost all the tech and features for a noticeable discount over the sedan. It's no surprise to me why BMW Canada sold 14.6% more X7s over X2s in 2019, and BMW USA sold 47.7% more X7s over X2s. This was the SUV BMW drivers have been waiting for.